It's BASCHAMANIA! Let me tell you something, brother. He gave us everything he had in him tonight. What you gonna do when BASCHAMANIA runs wild on you? Oh, it's gonna be a good one. And business just picked up here on the podcast. Oh, yeah.
And we are here. Anthony Robles, how are you?
I'm doing well. Justin, how you doing today?
I'm doing good, man. I was just telling you, yesterday was my birthday. It was a great day. And because it was quiet and quarantine and everything like that, I spent half the day like watching interviews and videos prepping for this. And man, I wasn't an Anthony Robles fan when you were in college because I had just started really following college wrestling, and I was a big Penn State guy. So with you and McDonough wrestling, I'm just like, it's not Penn State. But then as I start to really follow the sport, I think you start to not only learn more of the backstories, which is what this podcast aims to do, but you start to see really who the good people are in the sport. And I think you're one. You have a contagious smile. I've been watching footage of yours for 24 hours, and I've noticed you have to be one of the happiest wrestlers there is. I don't know anybody who smiles more than you.
Well, thank you, man. I guess I'm blessed to have a good smile. I'm just lucky that, throughout my whole wrestling career, I didn't chip too many teeth. So
yeah, and I mean, that turned out good with your recent broadcast career, boom. But we'll talk about that in a few minutes. I want to go back to the beginning here. It's so hard to tell. You have such an amazing story, and I understand why The Rock wants to do a movie on you, which we'll talk about that too. But trying to fit as many golden nuggets as I can into a 30, 60-minute podcast. So I'll do my best. Let's go back to the beginning. For no reason, you were born with one leg. Is your earliest memory just, hey, I'm a little bit different. I got one leg instead of two. What was your earliest memory of that?
yeah, doctors couldn't explain it. My mom was shocked. But just growing up, I knew I was different. But for me as a kid, in my own household, my family didn't treat me any differently than my siblings. So growing up, it was like, yeah, I have one leg. My siblings have two. But that was no different than, me being a boy and my sister being a girl. That's how I saw it. And that's basically how my family reacted to it. And so, I didn't really understand how big of a difference me missing a leg was, at least to other people, until I started to go to school. And, I just remember walking down just grocery store aisles, and people would look at me. I didn't really understand it. But I mean, kids, kids, they'll say whatever's on their mind. So,
kids say the darndest things.
Exactly. So I started going to school and kids would ask me questions and stare. And so that's when it started to kind of opening my eyes, man, I guess I am really different,
What was it discouraging at all? I don't know what it was like, growing up like that, but was it discouraging where maybe a sibling could do something easier than you could? Were you hard on yourself early on?
Actually, no, because my mom, the way she raised me and the way my family treated me, we knew this was going to be a challenge for me, missing a leg, but we never saw it as something that would hold me back in life. And so my mom, she never tried to protect me from trying things because, she was afraid I couldn't do it. Riding a bike, I learned that when I was 5 or 6 years old, without the training wheels. So it was I just grew up just figuring out how to do things. It was never oh, I can't because I'm missing a leg. It's okay. I want to do this. How can I do it? So I saw everything like a puzzle, everything just I might have to do things slightly differently, create a different way, but I can do it. So that never became an issue for me.
And your dad bailed early on, and instead of feeling sorry for yourself or making your life harder, you credit your mom for teaching you early on to never let what you cannot do interfere with what you can do. And I love that. I think you said that at the ESPY award speech is where I heard it the first time. How important was shaping your mindset early on in life?
Man, I think that was just crucial for me. That was key because like I said, going to school and interacting with people outside of my family, right away they would see me for what I was lacking, for what could hold me back. So they instantly, without even knowing me, without giving me an opportunity, had low expectations of me and what I was capable for. And, had I not had my mom, really just having an impact on my mind to where I didn't see this as something can hold me back, I would have, listened to those people who had those low expectations. And then that would have been my mindset, oh, I don't know if I can do this because I'm missing a leg. Well, I can't do this because I'm missing a leg. And, because she started early on and putting that in my head, when I started to interact with, that negative, that mentality that other people were trying to put on me, that low expectation, it clashed, and I was like, no, that's not how I raised. That's not how I was raised. That's not
Yeah.
what I've been doing my whole life. I can do this. I don't care what anybody else thinks. And that was kind of my mentality. It's like, okay, I need to prove them wrong now. That's my goal. I'm just going to do what I want to do, set my goals, and prove people wrong along the way.
Yeah, I love that. Gary Vaynerchuk says the same thing, that his parents instilled such confidence. I love what you said when you were on Leno after winning the ESPY award, where you said, I was raised with my head in the clouds. Like I was raised with such confidence. And I'm curious, if you mix that confidence, somewhere along the lines, you had an affinity with physical workouts. I mean, you set a push-up record for your school in 6th grade. Then I believe you played football in 7th and 8th grade, then started wrestling. What got you hooked on physical activity that eventually led you to wrestling?
Well, honestly, I think a lot of it had to do with my stepdad, and as you mentioned, he was, he left at an early age, but throughout my life, he was always kind of in again, out again. He was there and he wasn't. So it was a rocky relationship there, but he was still my dad, and I always loved him, and so I just remember growing up, he was really big into weightlifting. So he had a weightlifting set in the garage, and, we were huge Raiders fans. So we were always watching football on the weekends, sports. We watched the Lakers as well. And my favorite movie was Rocky growing up. So, I remember like the Rocky scenes where he's doing pull-ups and push-ups. Yep. And so that just kind of got in my head early on, and just seeing my stepdad doing it, it's like, I want to do that too, and it was just fun for me. It was just fun to see how strong I could get, and, how much I could push my body.
And I've heard you say that, you played football in 7th and 8th grade, and you quickly realized it just really wasn't for you. And I've heard you again say, one of the things I love, by the way, about having people on the show who have done so many interviews, is I can get all the stuff I hear all the time out of the way and kind of pull out of that. So I've heard you say, you were, I think, 5-8 your freshman year, worst record in your city, but you got better. How did you get better? Where with football, you're like, I'm not good, or this isn't for me. But with wrestling, even though you sucked initially, you're like, no, I can be good. What was the difference there?
Well, football, I was only 90 pounds, and they had me as a defensive lineman, so I was just too small. And, hopping around the field, I could do it for so long, but I just get tired, but wrestling, I like that one-on-one aspect. I love the weight classes. I love just walking in the room and different body types, and, tall wrestler, short wrestler, stocky, whatever. And so I would say, the big difference for me after that first year of not doing well, of sucking, it was just, I committed to training all summer. And, I was training with the guy. His name was Chris Friege, one of my best friends. He was a state champion eventually for our team. And also Henry Cejudo lived in Arizona at the time. He went to Maryville High School. And so Chris was a good friend. We would rotate around. Henry would come down to Mesa High, where we were at. We'd wrestle in the summer. We'd go to Henry's school, wrestle at Maryville, and barbecue afterwards. And so that was my summer. I'm wrestling with the state champion, a future national runner-up, a future gold medalist. Yeah. And, these guys are literally they're beating me every single day. We're scrapping every day. But, it helped to toughen me up. It helped me to learn quickly, just that I needed to be efficient, that I needed to really commit to my attacks, clean them up. And it gave me the confidence knowing, once season started, I wasn't going to be wrestling guys of this caliber, through a high school career. Yeah, they're tough guys, but at that level, so I just say that, was it that phrase that lions train with lions? If you want to be a lion, you train with lions. Yeah. That's what I was trying to do. I want to be a lion, and those guys, they pushed me, and I'd say that was a big difference, just learning that mentality early on from them.
Would you say that's one of the biggest, something you attribute the most to going from 5-8 your freshman year to going 96-0 your junior and senior year? Would you say that's one of the biggest things?
Oh, absolutely. Them pushing me and my mentality. And I think that was the biggest thing. I started to develop that confidence in myself, I was confident in my ability and my wrestling style, because that was the toughest thing too, was starting out that first year. I didn't know what I was doing. And really I had to learn a whole new wrestling style from scratch. My coaches had to figure this out with me, because there was no other one-legged wrestler at the time that I could, pull up YouTube to watch,
right,
to mimic a style. And there wasn't even a YouTube,
Right.
So, yeah. So it was a lot of trial and error and a lot of patience. But, those summers, that's when I made the mistakes. When I was getting my butt booked and I had to figure out how to tweak certain things. It's like, well, if they work on the best guys in this room, they'll work on everybody else.
Right.
And so it was just doing that helped with my confidence. It helped with my mental game. And, I stepped out there on the mat. Like I didn't want to lose anybody. I didn't want to give up any points to anybody. I was on another level.
And it seems like you kind of had the trifecta. You had a great support system with being raised by your mom, kind of giving you that head in the clouds type feeling. You had some of the best wrestlers around, like Henry, to train with. And I think one of the other things I've seen in your life is that I know faith has played a big impact. And I'm curious at when your faith started. I know you were raised in the church. When did your faith start to really play a role in your career?
Well, I was raised in the church, my family, Christian background. And so, ever since I can remember, that was our thing. We would go to church on Sundays and we would read together. And, my mom always told me from that young age that God made me this way for a reason, and I never understood that. But, when I got into wrestling, I felt like that was the calling for my life. But I would say, my faith really started to impact me in college. It really, really, hit me because we were going through a lot, just, with my family, mentally, there was a lot going on. I mean, my stepdad, that was at a point where he was officially about to be out of my life for good. My mom was in a situation where she was a single parent about to lose her house. And it was a struggle. I contemplated quitting wrestling actually during one of the seasons in college. But I'd say my faith, it definitely pulled me through, just having that in the back of my mind. It's like, I don't understand it right now. But there is a plan. God does have a plan, and I just got to be patient. Just positive, do what I can. To better my situation, do the most with what I have now, and He'll take care of the rest of it. And I think it's shown. He's definitely blessed me.
And I want to talk about that in a second, because Nashon Garrett told me something similar, where with him there was some family stuff going on his sophomore year, and he dealt with a lot. But before I even dive into that, I want to talk about the recruiting for a second, because you wanted to go D1 and you wanted to go to an Iowa and Oklahoma, and the only two schools that ended up calling you back were ASU and Drexel. What was that process like? Like, did you were you discouraged at all? I know you had a chip on your shoulder. I know you're like, okay, they don't understand clearly what I'm capable of.
Oh yeah, I definitely had a chip on my shoulder, and it was a surprise to me because I did well in high school. I was a 2-time high school state champ, and my senior year, I just remember I still wasn't getting the high recruiting offer expected. Like you said, just Drexel and ASU, which are great schools.
Yeah.
But I was expecting more, more options. And I just remember my coach told me, he's like, all right, he's like, we have to get you national exposure. So you got to go to the high school national tournament. If you do well there, then, the colleges really, really take a look at you, And so I go there, I end up winning that at 112 pounds, NHSCA national champ.
Yep.
But still the offers weren't coming in, and it was very discouraging, especially just to see guys that I had seen during the year, and, they're going different places, and some of them I had beaten. And, but, again, I think in the big picture, looking back, it was for the best because I got to stay here in Arizona. And that was always something for me, which led to my decision of not going to Drexel. I wanted to stay here in Arizona, be the hometown boy, but more importantly, be around my family, because my family was always my strength during those times when I was struggling mentally, leaning on my mom, leaning on my siblings, and, also my faith. But, I just needed that nucleus around me. And, I think it was for the best. I would have loved to go to Iowa, but, I don't think in the big picture mentally, I would have been able to, tough it out as much as I did at Arizona State.
And when you said that God had a plan for your life and God created you this way, it's also everything. It's not just being born with one leg. It's not just this. It's the entire plan. And it's important to follow that plan. And I'm curious, through your college career, you had ups and downs. You weren't as good, obviously, when you got to college as when you ended it with an undefeated, perfect senior year with a national championship. What was it like balancing those highs and lows of not being where you wanted to be your first couple of years, not being a national champion, like you said, dealing with issues at home where it's like, man, my mom's about to be foreclosed on. I want to quit and I just need to make money. Like, I need to be a man, a provider. Like, what was that like dealing with all that?
Yeah, it was exhausting. And there were a lot of times, a lot of ups and downs. I remember my first year as a freshman, coming out of high school, I was a stud, at least in my mind, and, the coaches were talking to me. They're like, well, we think it'll be best for you to redshirt this year. sit out, train, get bigger, but we don't see you starting. And me, I'm like,
What
I
are you
don't agree with
talking
that.
about?
You know, yeah, I'm ready now. You know, I want that national title now. But, you know, I remember they have us go on the maroon and gold wrestle offs, you know, where we figure out who's going to be the starter for the team. And
Yeah.
you know, I'm wrestling a guy who's a senior. And I had wrestled him in practice a couple times, and, you know, I'd done pretty well. And so I go in confident. I remember I get the first takedown, but second period, he pins me. And, you know, I hadn't gotten pinned since I was a freshman in high school.
Humbling moment.
Very humbling. And, I mean, that wasn't the only time I got pinned in my college career. I think I got pinned again freshman and sophomore year. And so there were a lot of ups and downs. You know, on the wrestling mat, you know, there were some frustrating times. And, I mean, especially off the mat, you know, like you said, with my family stuff, I was working here and there with some part-time jobs. One of them was at a local airport. I was washing and waxing airplanes in the evening after practice.
Really?
Yeah. It was fun. You know, I enjoyed it. But, you know, there were a lot of matches going on in my life, you know, and, you know, that was a point when at that moment, I didn't see a plan, you know. I mean, it started just really weighing me down, and really, I didn't see the opportunities in front of me. All I saw were the obstacles. All I saw were the challenges. And it was discouraging. You know, I mean, I was doing the best that I could, but I felt like I wasn't getting anywhere. And I felt like in some ways I was kind of taking a step back. You know, I was losing ground. But, you know, I think during those moments, and what I learned was that, you know, during those moments when you have that thought pop in your head, you know, to where you feel like you're going to break, you know, that's where it's the most crucial to push through, you know, because that's when you're just around the corner from, you know, reaching that goal. It's like, you know, that's when it matters the most, you know, just like in wrestling matches, in weightlifting, in practice, all that, you know, when you're going to break, you got to push yourself past that edge, and you get stronger because of it.
Did you develop that thought process early on? Like because I know for me, it took like a while of business and going through other hardships that I've endured to say, man, I'm seeing this parallel between when I'm about to just give up. It seems like the clouds part, you know, and the sun comes out, but it's only putting the work and trusting the process. When you were going through all that, was it a daily battle? Like, what was the time from, like, where you're trying to stay focused? And even when you're discouraged, and I didn't wrestle in college, I wasn't that good, but I know even from being in high school, like, there's no time off. You can't say, oh, let me just think what I want to do for a couple of weeks. You got to stay committed even when you're not feeling it. Yeah. What was that like?
Yeah, it absolutely was a daily battle. And so, you know, what I would do, wrestling just to keep me motivated, just to keep me in a place to where I could track even the smallest progress. I would set little goals up for myself, you know, going into the wrestling, be like, okay, you know what? You know, Brian Sith was our assistant coach at the time. I knew I couldn't beat Brian. I was like, I want to take Brian down today, you know, or I want to ride Brian out for a full minute, you know, or I want to turn this guy, or I want to give up less points. You know, I would set up these mini goals for myself to get those little victories to help with my confidence, you know, to help keep my mindset and just thinking positively. And then in my life, you know, I was just, you know, like I said, my faith was always a big thing, you know, even those times I didn't really understand. So I was praying, and, you know, I was just trying to do the best I could do, working side jobs, just trying to save up money, and, you know, focusing on school, you know, just getting my degree. I knew, you know, down the road that would definitely help, you know, with my family's financial situation. So, you know, it was just those little things of doing the best that I could with the opportunities that I had and tracking the small progress. That helped me through those really, really hard times.
Well, and that's another thing that I love, that I rewound the part of the SB speech no less than 14 times to make sure I got it right. When it was don't let what I cannot do interfere with what I can do. Like, is that something you learned early on too? That, you know, I think that's valuable for anybody. It doesn't matter what you're battling with. I think that application is universal. Like, I can't wrestle in college. I can't let that interfere with what I can do in business or whatever else. Like, was that a mindset you developed early on?
I did develop that mindset early on, but, you know, I think honestly, I have to say that, you know, there were times where I needed to be reminded of it.
Yeah.
You know, like I needed to have my family encourage me again, or I had to have, you know, God just step in and put something in my life that reminded me of it. And, you know, that's one of the things I tell people is like, you know, nobody can do it alone. You know, you got to have some support around you, lean on your friends, your teammates, you know, I mean, something, you know, but I mean, I think we all need that reminder sometimes. And that's why, that word unstoppable, what I talk about in my speeches, that's why it's so important and so special to me is that word unstoppable. It doesn't mean you don't doubt sometimes, it doesn't mean you don't get knocked down. You don't face the losses. It means you dust yourself off, you get back up and you push through it, so, I mean, we can
where did you develop that? My wife was watching as I was watching yesterday, like videos and interviews, and she heard that, like, I don't even know what you call it. It's almost like a poem. And she's like, is he a poet? And I'm like, I don't, did you come up with that when you were writing your book?
Well, man, it was crazy how everything kind of worked out. I decided to get into motivational speaking. I was working with a speaking coach, and then through my agent, I got introduced to a professional speaker named Dan Clark. Okay. And so for the ESPYs, I was working on my speech with him for like 2 months beforehand. Yeah. And he actually came up with that poem. I was talking to him, and you were talking about unstoppable, and I wanted my speech to be around that. And, once we were kind of tweaking the final things on, he's like, just working with you, it's a pleasure. I wrote this for you. If you want to use it, great. He's like, but it's for you. And I mean, I just found in love with that poem, man. Yeah. I mean, it helped me to put my heart out there.
You still have it memorized?
Oh, absolutely.
You got to say real quick for everybody listening who hasn't heard this. It's amazing.
Sure. Every soul who comes to earth with a leg or two at birth must wrestle his opponent knowing it's not what is, it's what can be that measures worth. Make it hard, just make it possible. And through pain, I won't complain. My spirit is unconquerable. Fearless, I will face each foe, for I know I am capable. I don't care what's probable. Through blood, sweat, and tears, I am unstoppable.
Gives me chills every time. It doesn't get old. And speaking of being unstoppable, your senior year here, you were unstoppable, undefeated, national champ. I just had Matt McDonough on the podcast a couple weeks ago. So if he's listening, I know he listens to these. I'm sorry, Matt, for going here. But what was it like? How did you finally – so you battled these highs and lows we just talked about through college, and you end up being unstoppable. You had that breakthrough that some people don't get. Some people battle all through high school, college life, and they don't get, that unstoppable breakthrough. What do you think finally led to that undefeated season? And to say finally, like, you had 2 undefeated championship seasons in high school. You just said you were a stud. We all get that. But now in college, you did it again after kind of humbling yourself for a couple of years and not reaching that goal. What do you think led you to finally break through there?
Well, really, again, it all came back to mentality, to my mindset where I was at, because, it said a lot of times we can work and work and work, and we cannot have that unstoppable breakthrough moment, and we can not reach that goal. And so my junior year, I thought I was going to win it my junior year. I think I was ranked like top 4 in the country. Yeah. But again, a lot of off the mat issues going on for my family, but just wrestling wise, I was just exhausted. I think I was putting so much pressure on myself to win and, to be perfect out there when I wrestled. It was just getting to me. So, I finished 7th place junior year. And actually that was the first time in my whole wrestling career that I just didn't wrestle all summer long. I completely, I stayed out of the Arizona State wrestling room. I mean, I didn't step foot in there. I was lifting on my own. I was teaching wrestling camps across, the country for, some summer money, but I didn't train. And honestly, I wasn't even thinking about coming back my senior year. I was pretty set on just, talking to my academic coaches, taking whatever classes I needed to get my degree and just being done. But what ended up happening was, my coach, and he was aware of the situation. I told him I needed some time away, but he called me into the office and he's like, hey, we got these letters from a class in Georgia, in Atlanta. And it was a group of 3rd graders that wrote me as their hero of the week, and this was after I lost.
Dang, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, man. So I'm reading like 30 letters from these kids, and they're just really cute. But, for me, it opened my eyes to where I realized that I was wrestling for more than just myself at that moment. It was more than just, me reaching a goal, me proving people wrong. These kids saw me as an example, and I wanted to show them and everybody else. It's like, like I said, we can all get knocked down. We all have our own disabilities, if you will, our own things that can break us, that can make us quit and say we can't. But we also have the opportunity, and we also have the decision to decide if we want to be unstoppable or not, regardless of what's thrown in our way. And so my senior year, mentally, I was just in a whole nother place. I wasn't wrestling with pressure. I was having fun. And, I was wrestling to share that message, that unstoppable message. And I really think that's that's what, just helped me to unlock my full potential. Out there on the mat, I could slow everything down. I could relax. I was having fun. And, it was cool because when I started that year, I just remember cutting out Matt McDonough, his picture from the wrestling magazine. I put it in my locker. And I mean, I've talked to Matt. I mean, he's a great guy. I got a ton of respect for him. He's a stud,
Yeah.
I knew, I knew in order to reach my greatness, I had to reach his level. Yep. He was the guy that I was chasing. That was my model.
And I know that the Bible says, "Vengeance is mine," saith the Lord. And I've had to remind myself of that a lot. But God's funny sometimes the way he gives us closure, little victories. And again, I like Matt too, but it had to be kind of sweet for you that you end your career beating an Iowa guy, the school that didn't necessarily call you back, and here you are having your hand raised for national championship. Like, did you think about that at all? Like when you went into that match or after?
I honestly, I did think about it. And I mean, man, in high school, the Hawkeyes were my heroes, I mean,
Sure.
at that time, I mean, they've always been tough, but at that time they were, I mean, studs, and
Unstoppable.
yeah. It was funny. My high school coach, he has the picture in the wrestling room. I have a Hawkeye hat on. So I was a fan, but I was there, I was wrestling my heroes, but it made me nervous. But at the same time, it was an honor. And I figured thinking about it, it's like, this is the best way to go out, against my heroes, against the team that I really wanted to go and wrestle for. But you know what? I mean, that wasn't the plan for my life. That wasn't where I was supposed to be. I am where I'm supposed to be, and it was perfect. Just a perfect match right there, going up against the best guy, the returning champ from the Hawkeyes. It was special. It was scary. It was tough, but
yeah,
it was
I
very
heard you say you almost threw up before the match.
Yeah, I did. I remember they had an ESPN camera on my face right before I ran out on that red carpet into the tunnel. And I kept turning my back, man. I kept turning and I was like jumping around, but I was wiping my face because I was tearing up too. I was that nervous, before that matchup.
Wow.
Oh yeah. A lot of pressure.
And did you know, I'm assuming at that point you knew you weren't going to wrestle after college. So you knew this was like your last wrestling match ever. When did that decision to not wrestle after college come into fruition?
Honestly, I would say probably beginning of my senior year. I was going through kind of debating. The thought was in my head around then, but I'd say that beginning of my senior year was when I really started to develop a passion for motivational speaking. Started kind of doing little events here and there for local schools, and I was working with a speaking coach. And as my passion grew for that, I started looking for the next chapter. I was like, wrestling's right now, it's my goal right now, but my next goal, my long-term goal was speaking. And it was a bittersweet realization to that. So going through my senior year, it's like, man, this is it's coming to an end. After every match, after every tournament, and knowing I wasn't going on for freestyle. So it was hard. But walking away after winning my title, I remember just crying underneath the tunnel. After I got my trophy, and just realizing that it had officially come to an end. But at the same time, I was excited. I was like, you know what? I did what I wanted to accomplish. But now it's time for a new chapter. Wrestling's always going to be a part of my life. I'm always going to be around the sport. But as far as competition goes, my heart wasn't there anymore. And I didn't want to do the sport and do myself a disservice by not being 100% there mentally. I wanted my heart all there or not at all. And, my heart was going towards speaking now.
Then did that help the transition? I talk to a lot of people who go, especially from athlete to coach, and they talk about that transition being hard, where maybe it's because they weren't able to achieve a certain goal, or because you still feel like you have something left in the tank. Did that passion for your career help that transition be a bit smoother? I
definitely think it did, but honestly, there was a time where at the beginning I did struggle with it, and I was actually I don't know, depressed isn't the right word, but I don't know. I missed being on the wrestling mat.
It's a big part of your life. I mean,
it is. Yeah. It's like, man, I'm not, I don't have to wake up at 5 a.m. and run or lift, or, I'm not watching my weight. I'm not stepping on a scale every day. It's like, I missed that, I missed the struggle and everything, but as I got more into speaking, I just kept shifting my focus to that. I knew that I could apply the same wrestling mentality to my speaking career, how I approached it with that passion, with that desire to improve every time, to always challenge myself to get better.
Yeah.
And so, that just became my new goal. Then I just focused and locked in on that. And it little by little, that transition became easier. But, honestly, I don't think that bug ever goes away of, wanting to still jump on the mat and compete.
Yeah. And it's funny because as I was watching some interviews and different videos, I was watching when you went on Jay Leno after the ESPYs, and I'm curious because that's the only time I've ever seen you with a prosthetic leg on. They showed video of you like learning to walk, and then this had to be like what, 2011?
Yep, 2011.
Yeah, 2011. So, and then like if you go through your Instagram, you've never posted anything. What happened with that? Did you decide not to go down that path?
Actually, I do still have the prosthetic leg. It's in my closet here in my office here. But, that's a long-term goal that I have for myself is I want to be able to run on that leg.
Yeah.
But for me, being on crutches my whole life, this is who I am. I get around a lot faster. It keeps my body in shape, my upper body. And it's more comfortable, wearing the prosthetic for a long period of time. It starts kind of bruising. I kind of relate it to like wearing like a body cast,
Yeah.
So, and honestly, I feel like I'm not trying to hide.
Yeah.
I don't feel like I need to put it on and kind of, be afraid of what other people think, or because they still stare, which they do, but now it doesn't really affect me. But, the prosthetic, it's a nice means to get around when I want to, but the crutches will always be me. The crutches will always be more of my identity. And so I think long-term, I'll always stick with the crutches.
That makes sense. I was curious because I'm like, that's interesting. And I've never seen it on Instagram or anything like that. And it was funny. You said in either to Leno or in the footage that when you had saw your reflection walking with pants with the prosthetic on, you're like, what the heck? Like, that had to be weird. And like you said, like to keep going back to the concept that God has a plan for your life and designed you a certain way, and he's using that. And look at how many cool things you've done because you are so inspirational and because you are motivating people. That only helps, I feel like, motivate people even more leaning into that. Where if they don't see that, it's almost like your story is so incredible. If nobody knew you didn't have a leg, your story would be incredible. To be an undefeated NCAA champ is wild. Then somebody sees that and it's like, okay, I need to listen to him more. And going back to, speaking of like Leno, you have had so many cool moments and so many cool things happen that between everything you've done and your outlook on life and wrestling has led you this amazing life. What do you think has been the coolest thing you've been experienced because of everything?
Man.
Now, I have my answer for you, but I don't think it counts.
Honestly, the coolest moment, it's tough. Can I give you my top three?
Okay, deal.
My top three. Definitely one was, being on Jay Leno show because, I had the opportunity to go on twice, but the first time was on my 23rd birthday.
Yeah.
And, that was my first time like doing a live interview in front of a live studio audience. I was nervous,
Yeah.
Jay Leno shows up, he had happy birthday cupcakes and,
that's pretty cool.
Yeah. He took me on a tour around the set and had the crowd sing happy birthday to me afterwards. So that was definitely up there. Another huge one was, like I said, I'm a big Raiders fan, been one all my life. Sundays are for going to church and then we watch the Raider games. So, we don't miss, but I got the opportunity to have the family along with me. We went to Oakland for a Raiders game, and the night before I got to speak to the team. And so, that was definitely a dream, but I'd say above all of it.
You got to pray too, right? Didn't you pray with the Christian players? I think like in the showers or something.
Actually, that was another opportunity in.
Oh, really?
Yeah, in Philadelphia. We were there for
okay.
A preseason game. Philadelphia, they playing the Jets, and so LaDainian Tomlinson brought me down to the Jets, and down to our team locker room. I got to say the team prayer. Yeah, so that was really special. That's what I mean. It's hard to find one, but I would say if I had to pick above everything, you know, it would have been the ESPY Awards, just
Yeah.
giving my speech there because, I mean, to receive the Jimmy V Award, you know, I mean, what he stood for, the speech that he gave before he passed away, I mean, that's one of my all-time favorite speeches. You know,
Yeah.
I mean, that man put his heart out there. I mean, still that tears me up when I listen to it. And so, you know, I wanted to do more than just a list of thank yous out there on that stage. And that's why I was working so hard on that speech and why the poem was so special at that moment. But, you know, going out there on the stage, man, it was like, I remember looking out and I think there's like 3,000 people in that arena, but it's 3,000 of the world's greatest athletes. You know, I'm
Yeah.
looking down, it's like Serena Williams, Aaron Rodgers, Tom Brady, you know, they're all there. Michael Irvin, all of them are just right there. They're looking at me. And it's like, you know, for a moment, I just remember like looking around as they're clapping for me. It's like, man, it's like, you know, a couple years ago, I was last place in the Mesa City tournament. No, I
Right.
was, uh, after that, I was close to breaking, close to walking away from my sport. And now I'm talking to all these amazing athletes. I'm sharing my heart, you know?
Yeah.
And so that was a blessing to me, but that was just like the ultimate, um, the ultimate aha moment.
Yeah.
You know, I was like, man, this was God's plan. Now I see it. You know,
And
it's
the
like,
crowd pop when you raise the trophy in the beginning was just like you said, you walk out and you breathe it in, and it's almost like you didn't know what to say yet because you could see being overwhelmed with emotion, and you just raised the trophy up, and it was a crowd pop. It's just like it's hard not to, man. I don't know if I would have got sidetracked, but when I say too that I know mine for you, you're right. There's probably 10, 15 of these that you can't put a label on as a favorite or a best, but one of mine, observing your life from the outside, has to be the fact that The Rock wants to do a movie on you. Now, I grew up a WWF fan. No, it's where BASCHAMANIA comes from. Because I had a website in 2000 called BASCHAMANIA.com that was like, basically it was Facebook and MySpace before it existed. I would take my camera through school, take pictures, post on my website. It was just fun.
oh man,
And then that a year later morphed into like a pro wrestling news and rumors website. So I grew up a huge fan. And did you grow up a pro wrestling fan?
I did. I remember watching like Bret Hart and Lex Luger and all those guys when I was a kid. That was fun.
Yeah, I was a huge wrestling. Like everything I have is because of wrestling, and not just like folk style and that, but like being a WWF fan led me to learning websites that led me to literally creating the company which funds my life. So it's super cool for me. And seeing The Rock wants to do a movie on you, like how did that even come about?
It was crazy. It was a long journey to get to that point. You know, because early on, it was literally the night that I won my NCAA championship. We're celebrating at dinner and the phone's blowing up. And one of the calls was from a production company saying they wanted to talk to me about signing my life rights for a movie deal. So I got the offers right off the bat, but, you know, just talking to my representation, you know, my agent and getting some advice, I was afraid of just signing a contract and letting them take my story and do whatever they wanted with it.
Yeah.
So we elected to go the longer route, which was, you know, we write out a script and then we kind of start shopping that around to production companies. And then whoever's willing to stick to that script, and obviously they have artistic creativity so they can change certain things, but to keep it as true to the script as possible, that's who we were going to go with. So, you know, that was 2011, you know, 9 years now. You know, we approached 101 Studios. They were really excited. They loved the story and the message behind it, that positive message. And so, you know, they had done some work with Dwayne Johnson in the past in 101 Studios and $7 Productions, excuse me. And so, you know, they reached out to The Rock, and, you know, man, I remember when he said yes, it was just, that was a dream.
Did you hear it from him, or was it 101 Production that told you? Like, what was that like?
101 Productions reached out to me and told us that, you know, The Rock wanted to do it. And they said, you know, keep it quiet. We got to kind of, you know, go through the back stuff and the legal stuff first. And so I think it was like, man, it was like 4 to 6 weeks. I had to keep quiet and not say anything.
I don't know if I would have been able to.
It was so hard. It was so hard. But, you know, when the news finally came out and The Rock posted on his Twitter and Instagram, you know, that he was doing my life story, it was just like, man, it was.
Have you spoken to him?
Not in person yet. I know they've been trying to set some things up, but he's And it's crazy how busy he is. That man
I
is.
can't even imagine.
Yeah. So I'm excited though. I know, things got delayed a little bit because of COVID-19. We're
Yep.
actually getting ready to shoot. I think they're telling me like June they wanted to shoot, and then everything happened. So we're trying to get things rescheduled once Hollywood opens back up, and then I'll be able to kind of hang out with him on set, and I'm hoping to get a couple lifts in with him as well.
And
See.
you're cutting down. You're cutting down to do wrestling scenes, aren't you?
I am actually. I lost 12 pounds total right now.
It doesn't look like it.
Oh, thank you. I bulked up for my pull-up records, and I had to drop for the movie, so I'm like hovering right now, close to weight.
What? By the way, speaking of the pull-up record, which you've broken 2 now, right? Didn't
I
you
have.
do? You broke one at a NASCAR event, one at the Jets game. What led to that? Like you've literally since 6th grade just tried to break any record you could find. What led to that one?
I would say it just came from. I felt like there was just an empty spot in me for physical competition. I mean, dedicating so much of my life to wrestling and to being the best. After I was done with that competition, I was still working out every day. I was lifting weights and everything, but I didn't really have anything to push me at that level that I was used to. And so when I turned 30, I was 29, and I was like, man, I'm about to turn 30 in a year. I want to set another big goal for myself, and one of my friends from the gym, we're always doing little competitions with each other, like we did like who can do most push-ups in the sauna and stuff like that,
Typical wrestler.
Yeah, typical wrestler. But so he tagged me on a Facebook video of a guy who at the time he had the record for the most pull-ups, the Guinness record, and he tagged my name and put a question mark. I remember I watched it a couple of times, and I was like, I was like figuring out his rhythm. I was like, I can beat that. I want to go for that. And, it was born from there.
That's wild. Well, last thing here before I let you go, because I could talk to you for hours, but I know you got a lot going on. I'm curious. I just had Rich Perry on the podcast last week, and he's told me that after dealing with this accident a couple of years ago and everything else in his life, he's seen how far God has continued to push. And the more God has done in his life, the more excited he is. Like I told him, like, dude, you went through this accident. You have had a chip on your shoulder before that. You're now going to have to beat David Taylor and others if you want to make the Olympic team. Like, it's not getting easier for you. And he had told me that his perspective is the more God does in his life, the more excited and the harder he wants to push moving forward to see what's next. Similarly for you, the first 30 years of your life to see what God has done is wild. What kind of hope and excitement does that give you for what could come the next 30 years, next 60 years, however many years we have left on this planet and you have? What kind of hope and excitement does everything you've gone through give you for what's next?
Man, I'm extremely excited. Just to see the journey that I've been on and God's plan to this point, I couldn't have imagined it being what it is. Being that kid freshman year to where I am now, it's been a blessing. And now where I'm at in my life, I think it was nice just having some time to just get older, to mature a little bit mentally, see what's important to me. I know now that I want to use this platform, from the movie, from speaking, and, I'm about to start my own podcast, things like that. I want to share that unstoppable message as much as I can, because like we talked about, no one can do it alone. There were times where I was close to breaking and certain people just helped to pull me out of it. Certain people just helped me over speed bumps, and we all need that, so it's like, if I can just share a message, if I can just say anything to help someone over their speed bump in their life, that's what makes it all worth it, and that's the way I think I can say thank you and pay respect to not only my family and my coaches, but wrestling, as well. Just for getting me here is helping the next story that's coming up.
Yeah, for sure. Well, listen, man, this has been awesome. Anything else you got? Anything else you want to say before we end this year?
No, man, I just want to say, I know right now with everything going on, it seems like things are slowly getting back to normal in the world, but I just want to encourage people out there, because I know a lot of people are stressing still, with jobs and whatnot and paying bills, but just hang in there, just remember, just count your blessings during these hard times. When you're going through hard times, remember what's most important. You're struggling right now, but just push through it, just grind, just have that unstoppable mentality, and you'll get through it. There was a time in my life where I couldn't see the light, You know, I couldn't see a plan. I couldn't see anything positive, you know, but now looking back, it's like, man, that made me stronger, you know,
Yeah.
so just stay positive and you're going to be stronger. You're going to get through this.
Amen. I've seen it time and time again where I'm so frustrated going through something, but then after, when you finally, when the clouds clear and you can see what God did, it's the most beautiful thing on earth. When you can look back and maybe not even understand why you had to go through it per se, but seeing what came from the beauty from the ashes, it's wild. Awesome, man. Well, listen, thank you so much for taking the time to share your story on the podcast today. And I'm sure we're going to have to do it again, because if you live with The Rock, that's going to be a whole episode in and of itself.
I would love to come back. Hope I'll be much bigger by then. We'll see. They'll let me grow some more.
Awesome, man. Thank you again.
Thank you, Justin.
Awesome. Have a good one.
And the beat goes on.